Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live broadcast here at the BDA Scotland. My name is James Barnes Miller. Now, the live stream tonight's topic is about the Scottish Council elections 2022, coming soon. I have a couple of panelists here tonight, and they're from the Electoral Commission. The first person is Catherine, and if you hold on. Catherine is Catherine Heggie, and she's the Partnerships and Information Officer. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you tonight.
Catherine, could you tell us a wee bit about your role and what you do in your job? We know it's a Partnership and Information Officer, but what does that actually entail?
So my job is all about working with lots of different charities and other organisations to make sure that people who might face barriers when voting can get information and support to have their say.
Thank you, Catherine. I'd like to introduce our second guest tonight, and that's Jim. Hi, Jim.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Nice to see everybody.
Lovely, Jim. Jim, could you do the same as Catherine and introduce yourself and tell us a wee bit about your background, please?
Yeah, well, I'm the Electoral Registration Officer for Dumfries and Galloway, and my main role is basically maintaining an accurate and up-to-date electoral register that can be used for electoral purposes, and also maintaining absent vote lists, which is all postal votes and proxy votes. And also part of my role is providing electoral registers for various other purposes, including for elections.
Thank you so much. There's so much detail in there. I think we'll probably cover all of that when we're going through the questions. So, you'd mentioned that. What I'm saying is that if someone wants to become a councillor, do they have to go through you, Jim, before they stand? Do they have to go through sort of some paperwork for you? Or are you just solely looking at voters?
Well, even any candidates still have to be registered as electors in the first place, so they would have to be registered.
I suppose just worth saying as well, when it comes to elections, the role of the Electoral Commission where I work, we don't actually sort of deliver the elections. It's the councils that would be responsible for that. So if somebody wants to stand as a candidate, they would need to complete the paperwork with the local council. And actually lots of candidates are doing that as we speak, because nominations close tomorrow to stand in this year's council elections.
Lovely. Well, that's great. I've got a list of questions, and our audience viewers, you might be thinking to yourself, "Have we got another election? I thought we had one last year. Did we have one the year before?" Maybe you're getting confused because we had, the MSPs, but then there was other elections happening. So it would be really good if you could tell us about the council elections this year and when it will happen.
Yeah, of course. That's a good question. And you're absolutely right. We had the Scottish Parliament elections just last May. So the council elections this year are taking place on Thursday, the 6th of May. so not long to go now at all. And basically, at these elections, you will be voting to elect councillors to represent you on your local council. So councils are sort of divided into smaller areas called wards. So your ward is, the area that you'll be voting in, and you'll be voting to elect up to 5 councillors. So it depends on where you live. You might be voting for 3 councillors or 4, anywhere between 1 and 5. And some of the numbers there have changed from the last council elections. So you may be electing a slightly different number of councillors. And the people who are elected as councillors will be making decisions on your local council about various different local services. And there's a real breadth of things that they'll be making decisions on. It could be everything from kind of roads and recycling, right the way through to education, social care, housing, leisure services. So services that we all use, on a day-to-day basis, really. So it's important that if you want to have your say on who represents you, that you get registered and get ready to vote on the 5th of May.
Oh, that's such a lovely explanation. I've got some other questions. When you mentioned wards, I must admit, I just think a ward in a hospital, given that we've had COVID for 2 years. Can you explain just again a ward exactly? What does it mean?
Yeah, of course. I can understand the confusion that might be caused there, like you say. So really, your ward it's your really quite a local area, actually, your ward. So you'll have your council area. So for example, I would be, I'm in Edinburgh, City of Edinburgh Council, but then the actual my electoral area where I'll be going to vote and electing councillors for my specific area is called my ward. So you can find it really is quite a local area to you that you'll likely know very well.
That's cleared that up. I'm wondering, some deaf people might be wondering why there's a difference in the MSPs in the Scottish Parliament and the councillors. So what is it specifically that councillors do differently from, say, a politician in Holyrood?
Yeah, another good question. And I think, that will be kind of coming to people's minds since we did just have Scottish Parliament elections last year. I would say, there's different kind of levels of government that we have in Scotland, of course. So the councillors will really be looking at kind of local issues, and are there as well if you have kind of specific questions about, issues that you're having locally. So they will sit on the local council and make decisions about, for example, kind of local public transport services. They might look at sort of libraries and these kinds of things. Whereas MSPs working in the Scottish Parliament have sort of different responsibilities. And then we've also got our MPs as well at the UK Parliament. So obviously there's the different kind of levels of government, and sometimes you need to kind of think about how they might overlap or be linked together. But I would say, there's good information if you can kind of seek it out through your council website is quite a good place to start, to find out about what the councillors in your area are doing. And I would say as well, your councillors or your MSPs or your MP, you can always kind of get in touch with them if there are issues that matter to you, and see if they can support you with those and find out what they're working on at the moment.
great. Thank you so much. That was just so clear. That helped because it was good to know that. Sorry, I'll just repeat myself again. Thank you very much for that, Catherine. It's good to really know the differences in the kind of the levels regarding locality, like councillors really are. They're root and branch locally. So that was really good. Thank you for that explanation. So my next question is actually about voting. Last year, I remember we had a vote for MSP locally, our local candidate, but then we had a regional vote. So we had different ones, where you were central or whatever. And this year it's different. Could you explain the difference in both of them, please?
Yeah, of course. So for these elections, the council elections, we use a system called single transferable vote. So this is the aim of the system, I suppose, is trying to make sure that it's representative of the different views of the people living in the area. So as I said previously, you'll be voting to elect up to 5 councillors. So in these elections, you'll be voting using numbers rather than with a cross. So that's, if you're going to take anything away from tonight's live stream, I would say it's all about voting with numbers this year. That's the thing to remember. So I'm sure, hopefully we've got an image of a ballot paper we could show actually. So you'll need to number the candidates in order of preference. You can just see that there. I'll just give people a minute to have a look at that. So that's just an example of what your ballot paper will look like when you go to vote on the 5th of May. But yes, so as I said, you'll number the candidates in order of preference. So you'd put a 1 next to your sort of favourite candidate, a 2 next to your second favourite, a 3 next to your third choice, and so on. And you can number as many or as few candidates as you like. It's completely up to you. And something to point out as well is if you need any help when you're at the polling place, you can just ask a member of staff, or if you realize that you've made a mistake, again, they'll be happy to provide you with a new ballot paper. So I would say, feel free to just take your time and have a think about how you want to complete the ballot paper.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. So you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But how would that work? Could you tell us maybe how would that explain? Does that mean it's like the first, second choice of the councillors, or can you just vote for one? Could you give us a few examples of what people might choose to do and what's allowed?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's completely up to you how many candidates you want to number. So you could number every single candidate on the ballot paper, or you could vote for just 1 or 2 or 3. It's completely up to you. The main thing to remember is to use numbers. But what I would say is the voting system that we use at these elections means that when the votes are counted, essentially your vote can actually be moved around. So if, for example, your first choice candidate gets elected with lots more votes than the other candidate, their second choice votes can move around and go towards other candidates being elected. So if you only number 1 or 2 candidates, then the impact of your vote is slightly limited there. But again, it's completely up to you.
Thank you for that. That's great. I want to move on to the process of how you would go about knowing how many were in your ward, and also that you might have a different ballot paper. And again, just to go through again the numbering, just again about the numbering system, please.
Okay, so just looking at the ballot paper, do you mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I suppose a good thing to say maybe first of all is around your poll card. And hopefully we could bring up a visual of the poll card, which is something that will come through your door ahead of the elections. So your poll card will tell you, you can see on there, this is just a kind of example one, so it's not got all of the detail, but as well as showing you where you need to go to vote.
Oh, Catherine, James is asking, could we just go a wee bit, just we said about the polling card, because it went tiny. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, so we just saw the poll card there, an example of a poll card on screen. So this is something that you'll receive. Well, you might have actually already received your poll card over the last few days, but if not, it may still be coming out to you in a few weeks' time. But that tells you not only where you need to go to vote, where your polling place is, but it also will tell you the number of councillors that you'll be electing in your area. So you'll be able to know that in advance. And then just to go over the ballot paper and completing the ballot paper again, you will just number the candidates in order of preference there, and you'll know how many candidates you'll be voting to elect.
That's absolutely clear. And the polling card, is there a deadline for when you should receive it? So that if anyone's not received it, when should they wait till before they make contact?
Mm-hmm. I'm not actually sure. I wonder if Jim might know better than me on that one. I'll pass to him.
Yep, thanks. I can answer that one. Yeah, if you're currently registered to vote, you should have your poll card already. They were issued last week. They arrived. So it will then depend on when you register to vote. If you register to vote by the deadline, it'll depend when at that time period towards the deadline when you'll get your when the poll card will come out.
One thing just to add that might be useful at this point as well, we have got a page on our website where you can enter your postcode, and that will bring up quite a few different useful details for you. That's the kind of your election information page. So that will give you details for your local electoral registration officer, also details for your council elections team. So you should go to the electoral officer for questions about registering. And the council elections team, it's good to speak to them if you have lost your poll card and you would like a new one, or if you haven't received your postal ballot paper or anything like that, they can help. But it will also give you details for where to go to vote, and it'll also tell you the list of candidates standing in your area as well.
If I can obviously just come in again, I think it's maybe worth pointing out that you don't need your poll card to actually vote. It's there for information. So if you don't have it on the day, you can still cast your vote.
Thank you. James is just saying, I just want to make sure that that someone has to be registered, obviously, previous to the deadline before they can vote, and that deadline's now passed. No, So when is the deadline?
Yeah, I'm happy to cover the sort of registration aspect. So the deadline is midnight, or 11:59 to be exact, on Monday the 18th of April. So that's the sort of key date. You need to be registered. Yeah, Monday the 18th of April.
Lovely. Oof. So, if you haven't done it by then, that's you. You're not in it. So how would you go to register?
Well, there's two ways you can register. The quickest and simplest way is to go online at the website address that's just showing up there. That's the UK government website. Now that information, as soon as you register, will feed into each of the 15 ERO's electoral management systems, and we'll be able to process your application almost, the next day. There's information you'll need as obviously your name and address, but you'll also need to register online as your national insurance number and your date of birth. Now, I think it's worth pointing out, if you don't have a national insurance number, for example, you can still complete the application. The ERO, the Electoral Registration Officer, will contact you seeking further information through secondary sort of verification through things like your passport or a driving license, just to confirm who you are. And there's also an attestation process. For example, if a doctor that you know well could sort of confirm who you are, things like that. So I think just complete the application online, and we as EROs will contact you and provide support in that process. The second way is obviously.
What's ERO? Sorry, interrupt.
Sorry, it's one of these things. We call ourselves EROs, but it's just short for Electoral Registration Officer.
Lovely. James, you were both doing it at exactly the same time.
Perfect. So yeah, the second way is traditional way, a paper form. Now that can be downloaded from the Electoral Commission website, and I think we've got the details of that as well to let people see. So, or again, you can contact your local electoral registration officer, and the details of each electoral registration officer in Scotland is within the links in the Electoral Commission website. Now, I think it's important to note at this point that EROs are really friendly people, and happy to have conversations with anyone if there's any issues, whether it's an online application or a paper application. EROs have also been provided with information on Contact Scotland BSL. So if you need to contact your electoral registration officer, that facility is available, and we should be able to provide appropriate assistance.
Fantastic. Do you know, you've anticipated my next question, so that's absolutely fantastic that that you're using Contact Scotland BSL. So simply, if someone maybe chose to go do it online and then became a bit stuck, they could, in theory, through Contact Scotland, contact one of yourself if you're available, and
Yes.
get some answers, because what we've been getting, we have a BESL helpline here at the BDA, and we've been getting a lot of deaf people who've been contacting us, asking us, to sort of signpost them to certain places. So that was something that we'll be doing as well. We'll make sure that information's out there.
I think that's the good point. I mean, if you contact your ERO, your electoral registration officer, if you're coming into difficulty, we can take the information on the phone and process the application through the website ourselves and help you that way.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So just to, again, just about a reminder, 18th of April is the deadline. So for everybody out there, please contact your local electoral registration officer, or contact us through the BDA and we'll give you the links. But please remember that date is really important that you vote. So, and as you heard, you can use Contact Scotland BSL. So just a quick reminder, 18th of April, deadline. Okay, moving back to our questions here. See, when you actually get into the you how the way you get your polling card, you can go in and make your vote in the polling station, but there's other ways that you can cast your vote. Can you explain a bit more about them and how you do that, and if there's any deadlines?
Yes, of course. So yeah, you've got options. You can obviously vote in person, turning up to the polling station, but you can also apply for a postal vote, where that will be sent out to your home address and you fill it in, and obviously return that. Or you can get someone like a friend or someone in your family to vote on your behalf, which is called a proxy vote. So in terms of deadlines, the postal vote deadline is 5 o'clock on the Tuesday, the 19th of April. And the deadline for a proxy application is 5 p.m. on the 26th of April.
Okay, just be absolutely crystal clear. The first deadline we've got is to be registered, and that's if you want to register. So that deadline is the 18th of April. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh no, sorry. Forgive me, that was my error there. James was saying to become a councillor. Is saying it's today. That's right. That's, I suppose, the first part of the registration process, kind of thing. What's the date for that again? Just so I get
So
it in order.
that closes at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Ooh, so exciting. So if there's any budding councillors out there, you really have got to do a big, quick hop, skip and a jump if you're going to meet that deadline. But if you're only thinking about voting, we've got the 18th of April at 11:59 p.m. to register to vote. Our second deadline is then the postal votes. And does that mean you have to send it by the 19th of April at 5 o'clock? They must receive it, or you must request it?
It has to be received by the electoral registration officer by that date.
So I suppose the advice we would be given to our viewers out there is, if you want to register, register for a postal vote or anything else, do it now. And if you receive your postal vote, can they send it in now?
If you're even if, to be honest, even if they're not registered, you could send your postal vote in, but we would sit on it and then contact you to make sure you were registered. So in theory, you could send it in now, but ideally, if you could register and apply for a postal vote at the same time.
Thank you for that. That's really useful. Now, for the proxy votes, and if I'm saying as you said, a friend or a family member or someone else, when do I have to do that? Do I have to register? How do I go about that again?
It's an application form similar to the postal vote. It'll ask different questions, ask the name of who you're appointing as a proxy, and that'll need to be received the following week. It's the 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Now the proxy has got, generally
Sorry,
if it's
Jim, is it 26 April? Yeah.
26 April, yep.
Lovely.
So you could appoint a proxy, a neighbour or somebody in the local area, and they could attend the polling station on your behalf, or if it's somebody further afield, they can apply for a postal proxy, so they can effectively get a postal vote to vote as your proxy.
Ah, didn't know about that. Okay, that's brand new information.
And there's one other area I wanted to cover, was just what happens after that 26th of April deadline.
Jim, could you just 2 seconds, a wee second? Just James wants to just come in. Sorry, Jim. What James is asking, say for example, you've sorted everything out and you're going that day to the polling station and something happens and you can't get to it, whether you're sick or whatever, what do you do? Or what can you do?
Well, that's a really good question, James. That's I've just got about to cover that, so that's really good timing. So after the 26th of April, which is the deadline for the proxy, if for any reason through work you called away to work somewhere else or have to go on a course or something, or you're ill, you can apply for an emergency proxy. Now that you can apply for one up to 5 p.m. on polling day. And also, if you're having to self-isolate due to government advice for COVID effectively, you can also apply for an emergency proxy as well. And again, all these forms are available on the Electoral Commission website.
Great stuff. Oh, that's you've anticipated about 3 questions there. So just to recap, if again someone maybe finds the form difficult, you can contact us at BDA Scotland through BSL Helpline, and we will help you and support you through that process. So don't worry about that. Alternatively, you can do through Contact Scotland. We'll make sure all of the details are all there, and the information about our BSL helpline is there as well. Both myself and Helen Venhold Morgans works at the BSL helpline. So just before I carry on, I just want to say to the audience out there, if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll try and come to them at some point as the session goes on. That's great. So now I want to ask you about what happens actually after I've did my voting, I've put the numbers in. What then happens next? What happens to all these votes?
Yeah, good question, James. So polling stations will be open from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. on the 5th of May. So as long as you are in the queue by 10 o'clock, you will be able to vote. So polls will close at 10 o'clock, and all of the ballot boxes will be transported to count centres across Scotland. And the council elections, the ballot papers will actually be counted electronically because of the voting system that's used. That will be done electronically. And the counting will be done on Friday, the 6th of May. So that will start in the morning on Friday. And there should be kind of news coverage, and you'll be able to see the electronic counting, which is called e-counting, which is carried out to count the votes. And then they will be announced by the returning officer at the council.
Yes, oh, that's right, the returning officer. You'd mentioned the returning officer there. Can you explain what is the returning officer? What is their duty there?
Yeah. So they are essentially responsible for running the election in their council. So the returning officer is usually the chief executive of the council. Not always, but they tend to be the person who's the chief executive of the council. So they kind of hold ultimate responsibility for the well running of the election.
Fantastic. So just to get myself in the right headspace, so 32 councils at 10 o'clock will all be shutting their doors unless there's a queue. Is that right?
Yeah, so if your polling place happens to be very busy, as long as you get there by 10 p.m. and you're in the queue by 10 p.m., you'll be allowed to vote.
Great. And I suppose the recommendation to everyone is don't leave it too late. You don't want to be in a queue, and if you want to guarantee your vote, get in there early, before 10. I'm wondering if someone, say, goes into the polling station and has completely forgot about the numbering system and then has put X's, of the preferred candidates, what would happen to that ballot?
Yeah, so if there are any ballot papers where somebody's maybe not used numbers or done it quite right, the returning officer will look at the ballot papers and they'll always try to, if they can understand how somebody's tried to vote, then in some cases they might be able to make sure that can be counted. But if we have found at recent council elections, because some parties might stand, 2 or 3 candidates in an area, people see the party that they want to vote for and they go XX, so those votes wouldn't be counted in that case. So yeah, I mean, we are doing a lot of work to make sure people understand they need to use numbers. And the polling staff as well will be reminding people of that when they give them their ballot paper as well. So they'll get that reminder just before they go to vote.
Great. I've noticed a question coming in, and we've got this question coming in. Hang on, screen. I think it's a question from Robert Malone. So if you wanted to be registered as a councillor, how would you do it? Do you go to a website? Is there some other political party process, for example?
Yeah, so a good place to look if you are ever interested in becoming a candidate in an election is on our website. So from the homepage, there's an option to pick that you are a candidate, and it has all of the guidance that you'll need through from the sort of nomination process through to how to run your campaign, and all of the kind of rules around what you can spend and how to report what you spend on your campaign. So that's a good place to start. But you would need to complete the forms with your local council. So I would speak to the elections team at the council as well. You can find details for them on our website. Like I mentioned, we have a tool where you can put in your postcode, and that will give you the details for your local elections team. But yeah, all of the guidance, as I say, for candidates is available on our website.
Thank you so much for that. And I hope that answers your question, Robert. Thank you. It was a great question. And what we'll do is we'll make sure the link to the website will be put in the comments later on as well, so everybody can use that to get access. Okay. My goodness, we're getting lots of comments and people are loving what they're seeing. But what's coming out as well is, what is the accessibility for BSL users who are trying to access this information? So there, for an example, if you go into a polling station, how would you access, if maybe the person at the desk wants to ask you something or something happens while you're there, how would they be able to access communication services?
Mm-hmm. So what might be a good thing to do if you have specific queries about that is maybe reach out to the elections team before you go to vote, and just have a chat with them. So again, you can find your local council elections team details on our website. We do produce guidance for polling station staff, which talks about kind of offering support to voters, as things around kind of COVID as well. So, some of the staff might be wearing masks, and they're advised that, if somebody needs them to take their mask down, that they should do that to provide that support. So all of the staff receive training, and they're really there to help you and to answer any questions. So I would just say, don't be afraid to ask a question, and they'll be happy to help you.
That's really reassuring. So if potentially you were going to a polling station and there was so it was potentially you could contact your team, and could they get an interpreter there? But if they couldn't get an interpreter sort of in face to face, is there another way of accessing communication services if need be in the polling station?
I don't know 100% on that, just because it is the councils that kind of make all of the arrangements for that. I don't know, Jim, if you know any better than I do, or I'm happy to go away and speak to one of the councils and get some information on that support, because it's an important point, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, Catherine. I think given there's 32 different local authorities, they all have different systems in place, but it's a really good point. It's something we could look into.
And James was just saying there, when he gets that information, he'll share that with our deaf audience. Could I ask you some questions about the councillors, because I'm very aware this is going to be campaigning time, and you will see now that you will be getting people chapping on doors, looking for a conversation. And for deaf people, I mean, that's just a complete a barrier, and they don't know who the person is. The communication is just not happening. Would it be possible that they could bring an interpreter with them, or so somebody would bring an interpreter with them if they knew they were going to a specific, deaf house, or just take an interpreter with them. Would that be possible?
Mm-hmm. I think you would need to speak to the parties about that, to be honest, to see, if that's something that they might be willing to provide. As you say, we'll be kind of getting into that sort of campaign time as things start to build up ahead of the 5th of May. And, for a lot of people, kind of canvassing, as it's called, can be quite a good opportunity to ask questions, but obviously that's not going to work for everybody. There might be other opportunities to find out more about the candidates in your area. So thinking things like online hustings, it may be that some of the parties would provide an interpreter for those. But again, you would need to kind of check in with them and see if that's something that they might be willing to provide. But I think you would imagine they'll want to get the word out there and get as many people on side as possible. So we would hope that parties would kind of provide manifestos in different formats and these kinds of things around elections. But that's kind of up to them to make the call on that.
Thank you so much for that. So you'd mentioned there the sort of the manifesto. A manifesto is that like a document that's sort of a legal document that they're promising what they're going to do?
Sorry.
Oh.
I can't. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you, Helen.
Sorry, I'll just go back a bit. James was just saying, so James was explaining to the deaf audience what a manifesto was, which it's a list of promises and all the things they will do if you elect them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what it was. Thank you. Just have a wee look at my questions. So I think maybe this is the time. I cannot believe it is now 10:02. With 50 minutes is gone. So I think I'll try and summarise. And if I miss anything, Catherine or Jim, can you just come in, and then when I'm finished, you can just maybe add something if I've missed something. Because Catherine also has a guide that actually is a BSL translation in YouTube, and there's a link there, so you can also get lots of your information from there. And I'm just having a look to see if there's any more questions coming in. Okay. So I'm ready to summarize. Here we go. So what we expect in the next few weeks, the first thing is, if you want to become a councillor, you better start filling in forms, because you've got to 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you have to go through various processes for that. The next thing is about, if you haven't registered to vote and you want to vote, then you must register to vote before 11:59 on Monday, the 18th of April. Okay. The next one is if you want to have a postal vote, you must make sure your postal vote is returned by Tuesday, the 19th of April at 5 p.m. And the final type of voting is your proxy vote, and that's for maybe a neighbour, a friend, a family member, or whoever you nominate. You must do that before the 26th of April at 5 o'clock. Am I right? Is that right, Kath and Jim? And those deadlines must be adhered to, because it's the only way the system things can be processed. Our council elections are on Thursday, the 5th of May, open from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, and you use a numbering system. Did I get it? Yeah, and I hope everybody at home has found tonight very helpful and interesting. So just before we go, is there anything I've missed, Catherine or Jim, that maybe you want to say to our audience?
Yeah, thanks. I think that was a really good summary, James. You captured all that really key information. Yeah, I suppose just final thing to say is we have been sending out a voter information guide, which looks like that. So you should receive that. If you've not already received it, you'll get that later this week. I just got mine this morning. And all of the information included in the booklet is available in BSL on our YouTube channel. So I think somebody was going to post a link to that in the chat. So it's broken down into 7 shorter videos. So they are there for you to use, and please share them with friends and family, so we can help as many people as possible get ready to vote. But yeah, I think we've talked through all the kind of key information that you need to vote on the 5th of May. But I would just really encourage you, if you do have any questions or things that you're unsure about, look at our website, or you can get in touch with ourselves at the Electoral Commission or your local electoral registration officer using the Contact Scotland service. We're all kind of here to help and make it as easy as possible for everyone to participate. So yeah, don't be afraid to get in touch.
Jim, sorry.
I would just support what Catherine said there. We're here to help, so if anything at all, contact your local electoral registration officer, and we can chat through, help with the various forms and such like. So yeah, just please get in touch with us if you've any issues at all.
Thank you so much. So I just really want to formally thank both of you for joining us tonight and sharing this information with our audience at home. I found personally very useful and really helpful. And I just want to reinforce to everybody at home, if there's any questions at all regarding any subject that we've discussed tonight, and you feel that you may be not confident to contact someone, contact us. We can be an advocate. You can contact us through our BSL helpline, and we'll be happy to support you or signpost you to the relevant people. So on that note, have a lovely good evening, and I really do hope you found this useful. Bye bye. Thank you.